Thank you, patrons. What up, nerds? Welcome back to the Nerdy Narrative. My name is Leslie Smith, and today on the channel, I am bringing back the monthly wrap-up. Starting with October, let's talk about all of the things that I read in October, a little bit of what the book is about, what I rated it, a couple of reasons why I rated it that way, and we'll just have some fun talking about books this morning. Let's start with the beginning of October. The first book that I completed was one I was actually looking forward to very much. It's called The Puzzle Box by Danielle Trussoni. It's the second book in the puzzle series by this author, and it is marketed as a standalone. I disagree. The second half of this book, you will not get the full impact of what's going on if you didn't read the first book. I also, spoiler alert, think you're doing yourself a disservice by not reading that one first because it is so much better than book 2. So what is book 2 about? In the year of the Wood Dragon, puzzle master Mike Brink has been invited to Tokyo to try his hand at solving the legendary Dragon Box. The existence of this box has always been a whispered rumor. It's a deadly, unsolvable puzzle box that was created by Emperor Meiji to guard a priceless imperial secret. As far back as the fall of the samurai, when this box was actually created, it has claimed the lives of countless puzzle experts who have attempted its traps, its poisons, and seemingly endless mind-bending twists. Mike Brink's unique skill may make him the first to solve this puzzle, but he is not alone in this quest. Two very determined sisters who descend from a line of samurai are keen to get their hands on what this box contains. The quest to solve this puzzle ends up taking Mike on a journey around Japan. I gave this one 3 stars and it just barely made 3 stars for me. I loved the Japanese puzzle box element to this. I had never heard about Japanese puzzle boxes, never looked into it. I went down some rabbit holes after I read this book. Japanese puzzle boxes are intricate devices. They're filled with all these secret compartment, trick openings, false walls, and all kinds of other diversionary tactics meant to frustrate the solver. In reality, they weren't just one box, one puzzle, but many. In order to solve one, you had to arrange its pieces step by step, one by one, in a way that changes the entire structure of the box. One wrong move and it closes up like a fist. I was so tempted to buy one to see if I would be able to solve it, but I know myself. I would end up crushing that sucker with a hammer, but I loved the aspect, loved this element. What I didn't love was how easy it was for Mike to solve it. In fact, this book was focused more on a treasure hunt around Japan, more so than it was the puzzle solving, which I found so engaging in the first book. That's the problem when the first book in the series is so amazing. It's hard for the author to level up with the second book. If we had started this series off with this one, I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. Although the element, what I think is going to be the plot line for the third in this series, if there is one, I'm out. I'm not interested in that at all, so I will not be continuing the series. My next completed read of the month was The Eye of the Bedlam Bride by Matt Denneman. This is the 6th book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. 6 books in, they have all been 5 stars for me. I absolutely love this series. It's so addictive, it's so funny, it's so intriguing. This series around book 4 really got some depth to it. I am 100% locked in. In fact, at time of filming, the 7th book is going to come out in a couple of days and I just cannot wait. Even though the audiobook's not going to be around for another 2 or 3 months, I'm going to go ahead and read this one physically because I just have to know what's going to happen next. I'm going to keep the description about book 6 as spoiler-free as possible. I know there's a lot of you out there reading this series right now. I don't want to spoil anything. What I can tell you is they just keep getting better. Every one of these 6 books have been 5 stars. At some point, Matt's gonna have to write a dud, right? Can he really stay on this level? We'll just have to find out together. So, the Eye of the Bedlam Bride, the remaining crawlers have entered into the 8th level of the world dungeon. The unique defining feature of the 8th floor of the dungeon is that it mirrors the final days of Earth before these aliens invade and create this dungeon. The crawlers have been scattered all around the globe, and they are watching the ghost of humanity going about their final days, and it's just really affecting them. I've been jokingly referring to this level as the Pokemon level of the world dungeon because there's legendary monsters from Earth's lore that are roaming around, and each team of crawler, each party, must capture 6 of these beasts, which turns them into cards that they're building into a deck so they can battle each other. I loved the Pokemon card game aspect of this one. It made me really want to have a card game for Dungeon Crawler Carl. Another thing that I was getting tickled about is Donut's obsession with hats has really just taken off. It's become noticeable. I believe it actually started happening a couple of books back, but I just didn't take a whole lot of notice of it until this book. And then for those of you who have read this book, The Eye of the Bedlam Bride, tell me at the end you were not remembering Worms Armageddon at a particular scene involving slugs. If you didn't, I bet you are now, if you're old enough that you played that game. Oh my goodness, I love Worms Armageddon so much. A donkey, my kingdom for a donkey. That was my favorite. So moving into my next completed read of the month. I actually now have a physical copy of this one. It was still on pre-order when I read the digital art, but I read The Fury of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is the 3rd book in the Bloodsworn Saga trilogy. Oh, my friends, you see how thick this bubba is? Payoff. Straight payoff. Everything that happened in the first 2 books, it all comes to a head in this one, and there are so many skirmishes and battles and epic battles. Oh my gosh. In fact, because it is a culmination, a payoff of all of the things that we've been reading about in the first 2 books, it makes it difficult to describe it in a non-spoiler way for those of you who haven't picked up the series yet. If you haven't read this series, you were waiting on it to be finished, just get ready. I hope you have all 3 books because you're going to go back to back. Loved this one. I gave it 5 stars. This trilogy has one of my favorite fantasy characters, one of my favorite fantasy mothers in it. Oh man, I wasn't ready for it to be over, if I'm being honest. It has all of the staples that describe John Gwynne. Great writing, unforgettable characters, fantastic battle scenes. This author writes some of the best battle scenes that I have ever had the pleasure of reading. And the intrigue, oh my goodness, it was all there. I was riveted to these pages. 100% would recommend anything by John Gwynne, but if this is the first thing you decide to pick up by him, you ain't gonna hear me complain. The only thing I would complain about to you about this series is why did it take you so long to read it? So my next book that I finished reading in October, another epic fantasy. This one's still ongoing. This is The Fall of the Giants by Gregory Contaxis. This is the 2nd book in the Dance of Light series, which is a Greek-inspired fantasy. In this installment of the series, our main character, Elliot, leaves his friends and Elmore behind to embark on a journey to the mountains of the Forgotten World in an attempt to locate the elder races. And if he is able to locate them, his next impossible seeming task is to break the curse that has kept them trapped there for, I want to say it's around 300 years. If he can break this curse, he is hopeful that he will be able to ask them to join him in his fight against Walter Thorne, who is the villain that is trying to take over Elmore and the other regions around it. I gave The Fall of the Giants 4 stars. The Fall of the Giants had more character growth and development. It continued to build on the world that we were introduced to in the first book in the series. There was a lot more history and lore provided for this world, and as a result, this one got 4 stars for me, and I am very excited to continue this series. My next completed read for this month was a reread. I reread Necroscope by Brian Lumley. My friend Nico from Nico's Book Reviews mentioned that he was going to be reading this one, and I kind of invited myself along as a buddy read. Necroscope is also the name of the series that this book belongs to. It's a horror series, but it's got a lot of different elements: science fiction, fantasy, and it has vampires. I've always described this book as the setup for the series. We're introduced to our two major players, Harry Keogh, who is a necroscope, which means that he is able to talk to the dead. He's able to have conversations with them. The other major player in this is Boris Dragazani. He is the opposite of Harry in that he is a necromancer. Now, what the two do have in common is they work in espionage, more precisely espionage. It's the East versus West. This takes place back in the 1970s. So all of the major countries are embroiled in the Cold War. I love this book so much more as an adult than when I read it as a teenager and young adult. I understand more of what's going on besides just the fact that it has a vampire in it and a guy that can talk to dead people. I gave it 4 stars. It's disturbing, it's gory, it's gruesome, it's graphic. It crosses a lot of lines, so if you're someone who has any type of content warnings, I would suggest you go read the extensive list that are contained in this book. And even then, I would say check it out from your library and give it a try and see if this is a series you're going to enjoy. In fact, get the first 2 because the next book is so much more than this one. I'll also say this is the darkest vampire series I've ever read. I've never read a more terrifying vampire story than this one. This is dark. It's what I would call extreme horror. So that brings us to the last book that I read in October. What did I close the month out on? Well, I'm happy to say it was a 5-star read, but I got the arc for A Betrayal of Storms by Ben Alderson. Originally self-published in January 2022, I think it was. It was picked up by Angry Robot Books. Ben made some revisions to it, and now the series is being traditionally published. At time of filming, only the first book has been released. Y'all, if you're a seasonal mood reader and you're still looking for one to usher in the autumnal feel, the feeling of fall, this book has it. Oh, and more. Ben Alderson writes amazing descriptions. He is an author whose writing style engaged all of my senses because he writes about familiar things. When he's describing the autumn realm of the Fae, he describes everything with familiar colors and scents and taste. So I had the phantom taste of maple in my mouth, or I thought I was smelling cinnamon when he was describing a character. So A Betrayal of Storms is the first book in the Realm of Fae series. Our main character is Robin Vale, who is half Fae, half human, and has been raised among humans. Even though he has grown up his whole life in this town of humans, that doesn't stop them from selling him to Fae hunters for money. And it is such a hilarious way. That's the chapter that opens up the book, is when he's getting abducted, which, oh man, it's so funny. I fell in love with this book in chapter 1. I wasn't even halfway through and I was putting Ben Alderson on my auto-buy author list. I cannot wait to continue the series. So anyway, he's captured by hunters and taken back to a camp where there are a whole lot of other Fae being held captive. As luck would have it, a group of Fae led by the Fae princess of the Autumn Realm rescues Robin and the others. Robin and the other freed captives are taken back to safety in the realm of the Fae, the Autumn Court. Upon his arrival, he learns a lot of interesting things that just absolutely shake him up to his core, turns his entire world upside down. One of those things is that the Fae have been planning for a long time to launch a war against the humans. The second thing is Robin is the long-lost heir of the Winter Court. He is the sole remaining person that is descended from the royal bloodline of the Icethorn Court. This puts Robin in such an impossible situation. He is so confused as to what he should do. Can he go back to his life as a human, or does he go back to the Winter Realm, claim the untamed wild magic and stop this war that the Fae are trying to launch against the humans. It's so good. It's so well written, y'all. I love the lost heir trope, and because that's one I love, I read a lot of them. So what I'm looking for is not that there's something unique about it, but is it executed well? And in my opinion, Ben Alderson absolutely achieved that. I loved his writing style. He paid such meticulous attention to everything, vivid descriptions, character development. There were so many subtle nuances. I loved the political intrigue. Oh my goodness. I was so wrapped up in what was going on. This is the type of book that you want to sit down with a bowl of popcorn because you know something juicy is going to happen every time you pick it up. I'm so excited to continue the series, which I'm planning to do next month. Because A Betrayal of Storms was such a surprise hit for me, a new author that became an auto-buy author before I was even halfway through the book, I have decided that A Betrayal of Storms is my book of the month for October. In addition to my book of the month, I have an audiobook narrator of the month. And I'm gonna go with the narrator for Necroscope, James Langston. He nailed it. I think that the reason why I used to say the first book in the Necroscope series was the weakest of the series is because of its narrative style of tell, don't show. It's a lot of dialogue. There is a little bit of action. There's pockets of action. And James Langston just captured it with his voice. He gave this story life. All of the different characters with their different accents. It was just perfect. But that's all I got for y'all today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that one of the books that I talked about today is one that sounds like it would be absolutely perfect for you. A reminder, in the description box, I'm going to have a link to all of the non-spoiler reviews. So just a little bit more about my thoughts about the different elements that make up the book. Of course, just keep in mind, it's all my thoughts and opinions that are subjective to myself as a reader. But hopefully I share enough for you to still be able to make an informed decision. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch y'all in the next one.